Hello, hello, hello,
Hello, everyone.
everybody. What's going on? We are going to wait so that we can get more people joining our live, but we are super excited today to have Andrew Flachner join us. And oh my gosh, he's going to be sharing so much. But while we're waiting for everybody to jump on, if you're here, we would love for you to comment. Where are you from? We want to know where you're from. And we are going to be talking about some really interesting things today, especially when it comes to the NAR settlement and how you can continue building your business in a very specific way. So if you have some concerns about your middle of funnel, right, converting your leads into actual clients, we would love to hear all the things that are going on with you and your business, especially as the industry is changing. So we can see that we've got Chicago here. What is the weather like there? I am very curious because it is crazy here in Texas. Andrew is in California, the Sunshine State, and so is Karis.
Oh
I don't know,
yes,
guys.
70
Is
70
degrees
California
today.
is it Sunshine State in California?
It's 70 degrees today, so yeah, I'm not complaining.
That's nice.
Oh,
That's a good weather.
I know. We're jealous. So we have got everybody from all over the country, and we are still getting people joining us. So, again, as you are joining us, let us know in the comments where you are from and any concerns that you have regarding post settlement, converting your leads into actual clients. That is what our conversation is going to be today. And we would really like to know, where are you in your business and what are you struggling with? So, anything that you guys want to say, Karis, Andrew?
No, I'm excited for all that Andrew's going to share today. We've spoken the last couple weeks about the NAR settlement and how things are going to change, and we know that over it's not even the course of just until July. It's going to be over the course of the next year or so. The industry is going to evolve. It's going to change, and so we as agents need to learn how to adapt. And so Andrew's going to be sharing such great things today because we know that one of the main things as well is going to be that you have to have that buyer agent agreement signed before like you even show a house. That's a big deal for someone to be able to trust you to sign that agreement. So, and it's going to be showing how you can provide the value to people in order to get that signed as well. So I'm excited to hear everything that Andrew's going to share today.
We are too. And that is such a great segue into us introducing Andrew. And again, as people are coming on, I and Karis are so excited to have Andrew here. And we are so grateful for him to share what he is doing and helping agents again with all of the changes in the industry. So a little bit about Andrew. He is the co-founder and president of RealScout, an incredible tech company that really helps the middle funnel of your business. So this is a tool that I had never heard of before, and it is so needed in helping that nurturing process. And so we're really excited to hear about that. Andrew has been featured on the most influential as one of the most influential real estate leaders in the business. He has been in Forbes 30 under 30, which is absolutely incredible. Inman Connect T3 Summit as a keynote speaker and serves over 100,000 agents in their business, again, in middle of funnel. So Andrew, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you take it away?
Sure, and it is a privilege to be here. So thank you so much, Christy and Karis. It's really amazing to been working with you over the past few weeks and getting this content together. And I couldn't be more excited to be here today. So as the screen shows, if we could pull up the slides, today we're going to be talking about how to navigate the industry shift, and specifically 3 tactics to demonstrate value before asking clients to sign an agency agreement. And as we still have some people funneling in, I just wanted to get a read of the room. So if you wouldn't mind keeping that comment box open, I'm going to ask for a little bit of engagement here. I was just in Orlando doing the keynote for Tom Ferry at the Elite Retreat. And it was really interesting to poll the audience because there's a lot of different stories being told about how 2024 is going to shape up. when it comes to the real estate industry and the market in general. And I think there's two stories that can be told here. The first is that 2024 is going to be a bull year in real estate. And what that means is we have interest rates coming down. There's already robust economic indicators coming up. You saw the jobs report earlier, earlier last week. And then there's this pent-up demand and also pent-up supply of people wanting to move but haven't had the opportunity to yet. There's also, however, a bear story that can be told about this year. And it's almost uncanny how spot on I was with the timing on this. But about a week prior to the settlement being announced, I called the commission lawsuits may be a case for a bear story this year. Even if it didn't result in changing legislation or rules, it would change the nature of the conversation that you're having with your clients. There's also a concern that interest rates don't drop precipitously, and we see that they sustain pretty high levels, at least relative to the past few years. And then we may be in for a hard landing in the economy. There's also a story where maybe the bull story and the bear story sort of balance each other out and things remain in limbo. So if you could be very brave, I'm very curious to hear from this audience, do you think that it's going to be a bull year in real estate? Just put the letter A into the chat box or the comments. Is it going to be a bear story in 2024, in which case just put a B? Or are things going to remain in limbo, in which case put a C into the chat box? And as people are commenting, I would say this: if you can't predict the future, which I don't know a lot of people who can, it is best not to plan for a singular future. In other words, if you can't predict the future, this is the year where it's more important than ever before to do scenario planning, where you can figure out what things look like when you want to pull back on your business in a bear market or when you want to double down in a bull market. You want to maintain that agility when it comes to planning this year. All right, so it seems like the group is a little divided on whether or not this is going to be a bull story, bear story, or things remain in limbo. The next question is this. I wanted to simplify, and I'll admit this is an oversimplification, but I wanted to simplify the universe of growth strategies in your business this year. So in one category, you can be focusing on expansion. And what expansion means in this context is that you're going to be investing more into your business, meaning you're going to be buying more leads, or you're going to be building your team, expanding into new markets. There's also a set of strategies that I'll bundle under ROI. And this is where you're going to be focusing more on the investments that you've already made and extracting more value from those investments. And so that would be increasing your marketing conversion, or doubling down on repeat and referral business, or figuring out other productivity gains or cost cutting. And so I'm very curious for this group here, if you're going to be focusing on expansion, where you're investing more money in growing your business this year, then just put a 1 in the comment box. Or if you are thinking about ways so you can extract more value from the investments you've already made, that would be number 2 in the comment box, if you wouldn't mind. And the thinking here is that my advice, by the way, is that even if you plan on investing more in your business, it's really important that you first focus on ROI so that your investments can pay bigger dividends. All right, so it looks like a couple of people are focused on the ROI camp. We have somebody focused on the expansion camp. And I think that this year, more than ever, it's going to be important that you remain flexible in your footing, because again, if we do see a bear market, you're going to want to pull back on some of those investments. And then if things are really looking great, you want to double down. And Anthony is splitting the difference with expansion and ROI, which is fantastic. Certainly, if you're going to be spending more money on your business, you don't want to forget about the ROI component. So thanks for participating in that. It's just good for me to see, where are people at this year? What is their level of confidence in the economy and the real estate market? And then how are they thinking about their investments? Specifically today during the session, I'm going to be focusing on bucket number 2, which is how you can focus on ROI. And that's relevant to everyone in the group, because even if you're writing big checks on your marketing spend this year, you still want to focus on buttoning up your ROI strategy. So specifically, we're going to talk about how you can demonstrate value to your clients before the agency agreement ever comes up. Now, I'm going to be covering a lot of actionable content today, but you might have seen my exclusive interviews that I've done with the CEO of NAR, or the COO of Zillow, or the CEOs of Open Door and Redfin and Tom Ferry. If you want to subscribe to exclusive interviews like that, you want best practices on lead gen and especially lead nurture and lead conversion, feel free to follow me on social media or subscribe to our newsletter. We promise not to spam you, and of course, you can unsubscribe at any time. But this is the best way to get content from me. Go ahead and scan the QR code. I also put the link down there in case you're on mobile. So I would love to connect in that way. All right, moving right along. You've been hearing a lot about the need to show value to secure a buyer agreement. And one of the things that's coming out of the NAR settlement and the potential consequences of that settlement is a lot of concern about what impact this is going to have on your day-to-day business, your day-to-day life, especially when it comes to those buyer agreements. And I know for a fact that it's going to become a big issue of conversation. I know some folks are worried about the conversations that they're going to be having with their clients. And there's been a ton of talk about this idea that you need to show value and you need to have a buyer presentation and really make a hard sell when it comes to why a client should be working with you, why you deserve to work with a client. And I think that emphasis is largely correct, but it's also very important in this go forward scenario that you're thinking about how to demonstrate value before it comes to that conversion moment. So we've been talking to a ton of people and realized there's a lot of speculation about how this looks. So I want to talk a little bit about that, where this workload lies and how this affects the consumer so that you can have a game plan for this year. So before the settlement, let's just talk about the status quo, where we are today. This is kind of where we are today, right? If you were working with a buyer, the workload and the idea of showing value to the consumer is distributed kind of evenly or in a linear pace. And you first meet a prospect, maybe it's a lead, maybe it's an open house, whatever it may be. And that's the start of the relationship today. And the buyer agreement is optional. I know for some of you, you may already do it and maybe you've been doing it for years, but technically it's not a requirement in most markets. And by the end of the transaction, there's a ramp in activity. You're going to showings, you're doing contracts, you're attending inspections. There's a whole bunch of other things as it relates to the transaction. So this might be what your value add looks like to the consumer in today's pre-settlement world. But now post-settlement, you might be thinking about it like this. I need to do a lot of work right up into the now required buyer agreement, right? Buyer representation agreement or whatever it ends up being formally called. And there's a lot of salesy things, a lot of markety things that you need to do right at this point. And then it goes back to what it was before in terms of attending inspections and showing property, et cetera. So there's this kind of spike in activity where there's this high intensity moment right around the time that the buyer agreement needs to be signed. And you know, that may be fairly early on when working with a particular client. Now today, I want to convince you that it should look more like this. So the big difference here is that I'm advocating for a lot of that value to happen earlier in the process before the agreement is signed. And then certainly more value add after the agreement is good to go. But this, you know, there's an overemphasis, I would argue, on this hard sell moment that we want to avoid in best practices moving forward. So instead of doing that, think about a longer period of time where you're constantly adding value. And as you can imagine, that's going to help you with the buyer agreement conversation. That's going to make it a smoother conversation. And it's going to get a lot higher conversion to have that value being driven earlier. So I don't want to belabor the point here, but I just think that, you know, best practice, not only to make the contract signing go smoother, but also to generate more hand raises in your database. It's important to have the value front loaded. So of course, please do invest in your buyer presentation. That's not a bad idea. I think there's a lot of great advice out there and a lot of tools that you can use to create a great presentation. But I think it's just as important, maybe even more important, that you're demonstrating your value and adding value before the buyer presentation. So when the time comes, you want to make sure the consumer already has a relationship with you, already has trust in that relationship, and the conversation can go smoothly. So I'm going to talk to you about what we've learned at RealScout, which is my company, in terms of, you know, what best practices look like, ways to nurture your database. And I think that's going to be something unique that we bring to the table, because it's the part of the funnel, as Chrissy was saying earlier, the middle of the funnel. That's really what our specialty has been, and my focus has been in coaching agents for the past 12 years. So I want to walk you through how we think about that. But just a word of context before we go into how to do this for buyers who you want to sign a buyer representation agreement, or sellers who you want to sign an exclusive listing agreement. We will cover both of those items today. Just remember that your buyers will become sellers and your sellers will become buyers, right? It's okay to focus on generating listings or focus on buyers depending on you and your business. But let's not forget about the other side of the marketplace, because it's way cheaper and way more cost effective to retain a customer, retain a client, than trying to acquire a new one. So if you can keep them in your ecosystem, it's certainly going to help quite a bit. All right. So your database consists of these buyers and these sellers. And again, people who are in between these buying and selling moments. And what does it look like to drive value earlier? Well, think about it this way. These folks are seeking reliable and actionable real estate data. Right now, there's a lot of anxiety that homeowners have around what their home is worth and how that's changing given the inflationary environment or the Fed changing interest rates or what's happening in the macroeconomy or what's happening with the commission lawsuits. So people have a lot of curiosity about what the market is doing, and you want to make sure that you are top of mind for them. So home value estimates is something a potential seller would care a lot about. Recent sales in the neighborhood, also something that a seller would care about. And then for buyers, they also want to know what's happening in the neighborhood, but they namely just want more listings or new listings. And if you are setting a client up with an MLS listing alert, you're probably leaving them with a lot to be desired, right? Because the MLS experience just doesn't shine as bright as Zillow or Redfin in terms of consumer experience. So the punchline here is that people in your database are gravitating towards these online experiences like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com. And that may leave you with something called a dead-a-base, okay? This is a database of stale or dead leads. And today we're going to show you how to resurrect them from the dead and keep this into, convert your database into a thriving flywheel of fresh listings and transaction-ready buyers. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about how to do this for buyers. We're going to talk about how to do this for sellers. And then we're going to wrap up with how to nurture people who may be somewhere in between these buying and selling moments. So that's the game plan for today. That's the roadmap for the conversation. And feel free to throw comments into the chat box if you have questions along the way, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So let's start with buyer value. How do you create value for a potential buyer earlier in the process? And again, MLS listing alerts just aren't cutting it. So how do you equip your clients with something that's a bit more robust? Now, the headline here kind of cracks me up, right? Your IDX is killing it, and not in a good way. I was having this conversation just a few days ago with Jimmy Mackin of Curator and Mark Davison of 1000 Watt. And we were all talking about where IDX websites go wrong. And there's a few ways that they go wrong. First of all, the IDX experience usually isn't so user-friendly. It also has limitations with the type of data IDX is, meaning IDX typically doesn't have all the search criteria from the MLS. And so you're left with a watered down search experience that leaves a lot to be desired. So one thing that we've done at RealScout is we've started securing virtual office website data feeds. Okay, you might have heard this being referred to as VOW, V-O-W, but that is a type of data feed that you should make sure your website or your home search product is receiving from your local MLS. Again, IDX is not the same as VOW. So secure a VOW feed. With RealScout, we have VOW feeds in almost every market we serve. And because of that, we have 100% of the search criteria from your MLS. Why is this so important? Well, because agents are not going to use a watered down IDX product that doesn't have all the search criteria that they're used to seeing in the MLS. When it comes to consumer engagement, natural language is the way to go. So if you're sending listings to clients, see if you can find a product that has natural language that sounds like it was written by you. Even if you're scaling this across hundreds of people in your database, maybe even thousands of people in your database, how can you deliver a personalized level of service? And this email here says, hey, Kevin, here's some recent listings that meet your needs. Featuring a view of the coastline, Ocean Crest Drive has an in-ground pool and a walk-in closet. So this is how we approach it at RealScout. And we know from looking at the data, we send hundreds of millions of these emails every year or two. Client engagement goes up if you can deliver that personal level of service, right? If you can have that natural language, if you can make sure that it doesn't look like some, basic 1990s version of home search, if it feels a little bit more robust. And of course, you want this to be branded for you and your team and your brokerage. You want to have your headshot looking good. But when it comes to home search, I want to give you some tactics that we've learned over the years. First off, you want to have a safe haven to collaborate with your clients, right? If they're searching on Zillow and you're stuck using the MLS, there is a wedge being driven between your clients and you. So we wanted to make sure that we had an experience that looks and feels a lot like Zillow or Redfin, but there are no ads for other agents. There are no distractions. And that's what you get with RealScout. But one thing that's absolutely critical is you want to reveal hooks that pull your consumers in and get them excited to personalize the search experience. And so one thing that we notice is that if we allow a consumer to say, hey, I want to be near my child's school, I want to be near my favorite restaurant, they're going to start adding those addresses. They're starting to become invested in the product experience, and they're more likely to return to it knowing that it's personalized. A good example here is if you use like Pandora Radio, for instance, and over the weeks or months or years, you've taught the system how to play music that you like. Of course, you're going to come back to that music player as opposed to going and Googling and finding another one. So you want to make sure they have that level of personalization. But you also want to dazzle them, right? I think that this is where the industry has gone wrong, is a lot of IDX websites, they're a little bare bones, right? They're not something that you probably would use if you were searching for a home. So why do you expect your clients to? And so one thing that we've done is we've started to use machine learning to create a really compelling, beautiful, and intuitive search experience. And I'm really proud to share this with you today because it creates a visual home search. And if a client were to click on the photo carousel here, it would pop up with a slideshow, and that slideshow would allow you to skip to the pictures of the kitchen if you wanted to see the kitchen photos, or skip to the pictures of the bathrooms if you wanted to see the bathroom photos. And what's really neat, and the punchline here, is that a consumer can compare 2 or 3 listings side by side, room by room, and we will automatically put the kitchens side by side and the bathrooms and the living room side by side, room by room. It creates this really beautiful, intuitive search experience that consumers just can't get anywhere else. So again, whether you choose to work with RealScout to deploy something like this, or if you were simply going to coach your vendor or make requests to your vendor, these are some of the tactics that create a really compelling search experience that builds value earlier in the conversation, so that when it comes to broaching the conversation of an agency agreement, they're already used to relying on you for a really beautiful way to search for a home. You also want to make sure you have all the basics, right? School attendance boundaries, ways for them to draw custom shapes on the map and see all the pins populate. We live in a mobile-first world. Let's not forget that, right? So what is the mobile experience that you're offering to your clients? At RealScout, we've learned that having this customized dashboard where not customized, but a dashboard that has personalized results for every consumer, where they can see these are the properties that match my criteria. The middle screenshot is showing where they can take their finger and draw a custom polygon on the map, a custom shape, and see the pins populate. But the real kicker is if you and your clients are using the same search product, then there's no need for them to send you a link from Zillow and you go back to the office and log into the MLS. Both people are using the same software, but you as an agent can see the private showing instructions and private remarks. That is going to give you an edge when it comes to operating efficiently with your clients. So that in a nutshell is how to create some value for your buyers earlier in the process. And remember that some people may be buying next week. Most people are probably buying next month or next year. So if you can keep those folks warm and stay top of mind with them, it's going to make the conversation at the kitchen table a lot easier. So we talked about buyer nurture. I want to shift gears now and talk about seller nurture. I'm sure some of the folks on this call are looking to generate more listings in 2024, especially if you're in that expansion mindset that we talked about earlier. So how do you nurture your database without having to buy more leads? And I want to give a shout out to my friend Jimmy Mackin of Curator, because he popularized this concept of a ZMA, right? It sounds like CMA, but it's the Zillow CMA. And what he's recommended people do is if you're farming a particular area or you have your eyes set on listing someone's house, go to Zillow, because you know the consumer's already doing that with or without you. Print out the listing and then circle the Zestimate and put a Post-it pointing to that Zestimate that expresses some doubt about the validity of the home value that Zillow came up with. So some people just write the word wrong on the Post-it. Some people say, hey, if you could sell for 10%, 15% more than the Zestimate, would you be interested in having a conversation? And these have been incredibly effective. I've heard success story after success story with this strategy. This strategy also takes a lot of time, right? Printing these out, writing these post-its, and the ZMA is really powerful because it's personalized, it's high converting, and it's great for a farm or a limited sphere of influence. But today, I want to share with you how you can pair that with a different strategy called the home value alert, and how that can automate and scale this, right? If you don't have the time to be printing these things out and writing these handwritten notes, I'm going to show you a way where you can literally, with the flip of a switch, automate this whole process. Because you know your clients are going to Zillow, you know they're going to Redfin, but how do you make sure that you stay top of mind when they're thinking about selling? So we've shifted gears now, of course, and we're talking about how to drive value for sellers who may be months out or even years out from wanting to sell their home. But what you're looking at here is a home value alert. Now, whether you're using RealScout, which is what you're seeing on the screen, or whether you choose HomeBot, or I think KV Core has one of these, Ylopo has something similar. But the big difference with RealScout is that we learned that A, you want to show the Zillow's estimate because Zillow is a verb. Let's just face the music on that one, right? People are going to go to Zillow with or without you. And also we have two value estimates side by side. And the reason why you want to have two side by side is because you want to create a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of confusion with a prospect to indicate to them that they should not rely on an algorithm to understand their home's value. And so again, having two value estimates will have a consumer respond saying, well, wait a second, Zillow thinks my home is worth $850, but this other company thinks it's worth $920. So how is it that there are two algorithms that have two different opinions? I'm going to reach out to my agent to get the full picture of my home's value. And just like Jimmy recommended that post-it note, these home value alerts have their own digital post-it note. You'll see in that yellowy orange box that it says that you shouldn't rely on an algorithm to price your home. Reach out to your agent. So again, if you're using RealScout already, you have access to this, or you may have access depending on which version of RealScout you're on. But more importantly, take these tactics and share them with your web developer, or apply it to your own tech stack if you choose to work with other vendors on this. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about how you can nurture people in your database that you don't know if they're an active seller or if they're an active buyer. And so there's something we have developed called auto nurture. And auto nurture allows you to automatically nurture everyone in your database, or the people in your database that have a particular tag. And so first off, you want to get clients into RealScout or into your lead nurture platform, ideally through an integration, right? So we have integrations, native integrations with MoxieWorks and Follow Up Boss and Zillow, but we also have many more integrations through Zapier, like Lofty or IDC Global. And what's really cool about this is you can, Real Geeks is another example. You can set it and forget it, right? You can have these leads flow into RealScout, and then we will automatically nurture everyone in your database or whoever you deem appropriate to nurture just by flipping a switch and auto nurturing them. And if we know somebody lives at 123 Green Street, we'll send them a home value alert using that ZMA strategy from earlier. If we know that they were a lead that you generated and they were looking at 123 Main Street, well, we are going to create a listing alert and share similar listings with them. And if we don't know anything about them, we will help you engage them and ask them if they want to track their home's value, in which case we'll ask for their address, or we will see if they want to click around and view some listings, in which case we'll send similar listings to their inbox. But the key here is that you want to drive value earlier in the process, because when there is a conversion moment, when a buyer requests a showing, or when a seller says they want to know what their home is worth, you need to be notified about that, right? You want to get notified, whether it be on a web portal, like on RealScout, there's this live activity feed where you can see that, a client here, Terry, opened an email. Julie looked at this property on Monroe Place, and Sarah viewed her home value dashboard. These are insights that you want to have access to, so you know when it's the right time to have that conversation, get to the kitchen table, sign a listing agreement, sign a buyer representation agreement. And then finally, you want to make sure that the insights come to you, right? So if you're not going to be logging into a dashboard or your CRM every day, make sure you've enabled some way to find out about the high intent moments and get them in front of you. So we have learned at RealScout that agents who are using our platform are doing 54% more transaction volume. So it stands to reason that these tactics work, the strategy works, the product works. And so if you choose to use RealScout, I'm excited to hear about your results. And if you choose to work with other vendors, hopefully this presentation has been valuable and you can take some of these tactics and apply them to your existing tech stack. RealScout has made a living solving this problem for our customers. We've been doing this for 12 years now. We actually have over 100,000 agents who have access to the RealScout platform, millions of consumers on the platform, and we've won a lot of different awards and accolades. You probably recognize some of the faces on your screen right now. Many of the top teams in the country have been using RealScout with great results, whether it's Robert Slack in Florida, Byron Lazine, Pete Lorimer in Beverly Hills, who works with all the celebrities. But we're really proud of the results that we have seen. And today, Chrissy and Karis have asked me to come in and share a special with you. And I wanted to do just that. So if you are interested in joining RealScout, I will share the pricing here with you. First of all, everything I shared with you today, this RealScout Pro Plus offering, is actually not available to individual agents if you go to realscout.com. But we wanted to make an exception, and we wanted to make that available to this group if you were to sign up today. So it's $99 a month. That includes 2,600 contacts that you can nurture. Additional packs of 500 can be purchased for $10 a month. And then if you are a team or a brokerage, then you would have access to a 20% discount off of our pricing. So wanted to get that to you. If you have questions about how to sign up, I'm actually texting Chrissy right now with the link, because I don't know if I have the ability to post it here, and I'll put it into the private chat as well. But there are actually two links that you'd want to use. The first would be if you are an individual agent, you'd want to click on that first link. And then if you're a team or a brokerage, then you would click on that second link.
And we will definitely get that information to everybody who is interested in that. So, Karis, do you want to take it away with some questions?
Yes. Thank you for sharing all that, Andrew. Sorry, I was muted, guys. All right, guys, we're going to open up for a minute for Q&A. Who has questions for Andrew, whether that be about the value for buyers, whether that be the NAR settlement, anything he's mentioned with RealScout? What questions do you have that you can ask? Take advantage of this time. We have limited time left, and people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get Andrew's time. So take advantage of it. We'll wait a minute to see what questions come up. While the questions come in, Andrew, do you want to share a little bit about just what you foresee happening in terms of the shift in our industry with the NAR settlement, and just any like quick tips or advice that you would give for agents of like maybe 3 things they should focus on like in the next couple of months before July hits?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it goes without saying that there is still a lot that has to be seen in terms of the details of how the settlement gets approved and how it's implemented. So I think it's important to attend as many of these webinars as you can. Try to synthesize the information as best as you can. But I think that 2 things are looking to be fairly certain at this point. First is that cooperating compensation is just not going to be listed in the MLS. And there's all types of consequences that could stem from that, but I don't want to speculate today on what that would look like. And the second thing is the buyer representation agreements. And the best advice I have on that is to focus on fundamentals. I mean, this business works because of the relationships that agents forge with clients. And it's really, really important to do that as early in the process as possible. That's what's going to differentiate you. That's what's going to help you pull ahead. So what I'm not recommending is taking no action, because if you take no action, then, that's a certain, failure, because other people are going to pull ahead, in this environment. But I think it's still a little bit early to know, how to make big swings or reactions on the listing side of things. But for buyer representation, have these conversations earlier, drive value, and make sure that your clients are coming to you when they have questions about real estate, as opposed to going on the national portals. Because frankly, they're relying on you. And I think in this environment where there's a lot in flux, they're probably wondering, who a reliable source is to quell a lot of this anxiety. And you should be that rock for your clients.
Definitely. Totally agree with that. We do have a question, kind of what you were talking about, but is there anything different that you'd recommend for specifically newer agents?
Sure.
Like what to hone in on?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, I began selling real estate when I was in high school. So not only was I a new agent at the time, but I was also a teenager. And so I have a lot of experience with this, answer to this question. I mean, I think that when I was pitching my clients on why they should work with me, it's because I was going to give them a lot more individual attention. I was going to be a lot more attentive, a lot more responsive. And frankly, I was going to work a heck of a lot harder to earn their trust and earn their business. And certainly if you can team up with other folks who have more experience, whether that's a mentor in your office, whether it is a real estate team that you belong on, I think that really, addresses their concerns that maybe, you don't have as much experience or you haven't seen the story play out a million times. If you're working with somebody who can, be that voice of wisdom, and then you can be the one to just hustle behind the scenes and make sure that the client is taken care of.
Definitely. The time that you have when you're newer as well, I mean, you're able to dedicate that to them. So that's a great selling point for being new.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, talking about selling points and how to really leverage different tools that we have access to, what do you recommend for team leaders and those in leadership roles that are really trying to keep their teams motivated and focused on what they need to be focusing on instead of all of these things that seem to be very distracting and not very productive?
Sure. Well, I mean, I always go back to the calendar test, if you will, where if you actually block your time and see where you're spending your time, what are those blocks that are generating the most GCI for you, right? Because you can be chicken little, and the sky's falling, and there's a lot of frantic running around that you can be doing right now. But if you focus on where the business is coming from, if you focus on the activities that are generating GCI for you and or your team, that's going to be a good North Star for you to focus on. In terms of what like a team lead should be doing right now, people are looking for leadership, right? You don't want to create a vacuum of leadership where, agents feel like they're not getting the answers, that you're uninformed, that you're not following the news. So there is this delicate balance you need to strike between, aggressively sharing news stories and speculating on what's going to happen, and being, an ostrich with your head in the sand. So I think it's really important that you strike that balance. And one way to do that is by having weekly meetings where you have a Q&A where you can talk through some of these things, maybe suggest a webinar. But even then, be careful who you get your content from, because there are pundits in the industry who have wild speculation, which isn't necessarily helpful. It doesn't always play out to be true. So I certainly recommend following James Dwiggins of Next Home. He's probably one of the most informed people on the NAR settlement, and he's also a broker leader. He's a franchise leader with Next Home, so he understands the business really well. And then wherever you get your real estate news from, obviously you've seen a very different tune being whistled in the media from industry press versus mainstream media, which is pretty unfortunate, right? That a lot of the mainstream media has gotten this settlement, very wrong, doesn't quite understand how the industry works or what the value of a real estate agent is. But before you completely write off the mainstream media, just remember that your clients are reading the mainstream media and may even believe some of those things to be true. So if you can get ahead of some of that, and have your objection handlers ready so that you can demonstrate your value, explain how the process works, you're going to be light years ahead of others in your market.
And what a great way to wrap things up in talking about, again, demonstrating your value and the way that we can all position ourselves. And again, so importantly, making sure that we're nurturing our clients all the way through the process to get them to be long-lasting clients that keep coming back for the services that we know that we can provide. So Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing so much great information with our audience. We will make sure that we put all of the links in the channels, all the different channels, as well as an email follow-up. So
thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
All righty. And
Absolutely.
everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We are glad that you were here, and we will see you guys again next time. All right.